They're longtime rivals in the comics, but Spider-Man failed to appear in Venom's solo big-screen debut. Why? Isn't this a Marvel movie? Well, kinda. The answer is actually a lot more complicated than that. If you want to know the real reason why Spider-Man's not in the Venom movie, we gotta talk some business. House divided. Marvel movies didn't really become Marvel movies as you know them until 2008's Iron Man. In the 1990s, Marvel's movie-making division was still trying to convince Hollywood that movies and TV shows based on its comic books might be something worth looking into. Since it had no direct leverage in the film industry, Marvel farmed its properties out to anyone who would take a chance on using them. This is how Fox ended up making the X-Men and the Fantastic Four movies, how Universal ended up in charge of the Hulk, and why Spider-Man and his amazing spider friends ended up in the hands of Sony. This is how things used to be, but the success of Iron Man and the birth of Marvel Studios changed all that, getting the mighty Marvel movie party in motion. Marvel Studios has since been acquired by Disney, which more recently began the process of acquiring Fox, which brings a large chunk of the Marvel characters back under one roof, except for Sony's Spider People, and that's where things get dicey.
None of this makes sense.
An Amazing Spider-Plan. The same year that Marvel Studios took its burgeoning cinematic universe to the next level with the Avengers, Sony rebooted its Spider-Man franchise with The Amazing Spider-Man. And Sony's plans didn't stop with Peter Parker. In an effort to compete with the rising MCU, Sony began laying track for its own cinematic universe set in the world of Spider-Man's New York. During the production of Amazing Spider-Man 2, reports emerged that Sony was developing a movie based on the villain team, the Sinister Six. There were also rumors of a potential Venom spin-off, as well as a prequel movie focusing on a young Aunt May. A mind-boggling proposition, both then and also now.
Wait, what are you doing? No, I do the laundry.
I'm doing my laundry.
No, I do the laundry.
None of it panned out once the Amazing Spider-Man sequel debuted to a franchise low performance, leading Sony to reevaluate its entire approach to the Spider-Man property. In doing so, they leaned into a classic survival strategy. If you can't beat them, join them. Homecoming. By 2014, Sony and Marvel were officially in talks to collaborate on producing a second Spider-Man reboot, talks which ultimately culminated in 2017's Spider-Man Homecoming. The team-up arrangement sported benefits for both parties. Creatively, the arrangement allowed Marvel Studios to use Spider-Man in its own MCU stories, while Sony got to reap some profits off of Marvel's Golden Touch. The deal has been reported to cover the production of 5 movies total, with the 5th being 2019's Spider-Man Far From Home. After that, no one's really sure what's going to happen. Either Sony will take back control of Spider-Man, or the studios will continue to share him. In the meantime, the finer details of who gets to do what with which Marvel characters can be kind of confusing for the rest of us. Muddying the waters. In 2017, Sony announced the standalone movie for Venom, one of the most famous Marvel Comics characters that it owns the rights to. The announcement almost immediately sparked confusion about the movie's place in the MCU, if it had a place at all. People wondered, would Venom take place in the same world as the Iron Man, Black Panther, and the Guardians of the Galaxy? Or would it be doing its own thing? Even the people in charge of making the movies couldn't get their story straight when talking with the media. It was eventually cleared up that the MCU would have nothing to do with the movies that Sony made on its own. Basically, Marvel gets to handle the live-action Spider-Man appearances, and everything Sony does is Sony's business. Rumors abound. Sony began making the Venom movie with Tom Hardy in the lead, drawing inspiration from a comic that put the character in San Francisco. His costume was also altered to remove any traces of Spider-Man's arachnid DNA. On top of that, the movie's director explicitly said that Spider-Man would not be in the movie, which should have been the end of the debate. But rumors still persisted that Spider-Man would appear. One of the more pervasive rumors claimed that current Spider-Man actor Tom Holland would be appearing in Venom, just as Peter Parker and not suited up as Spider-Man. The rumor, most predominantly pushed by Collider's John Schnepp, has a certain kind of logic to it. After all, a Peter Parker appearance would mean that all those denials of a Spider-Man appearance would technically be correct.
You are technically correct. The best kind of correct.
SUMC versus MCU. Of course, as we all know now, neither Spider-Man, Peter Parker, nor Tom Holland is anywhere near the Venom movie, as we saw it in theaters. Indeed, Venom is the start of something new, which Sony plans to use as a springboard for a new attempt at a cinematic universe. According to Variety, the series is being internally referred to as Sony's Universe of Marvel Characters, which is not a great name, but hey, it's what we've got for now. The question is, who's next? Sony is reportedly now in development on several movies based on the Marvel Comics characters to which it owns the film rights, a number that Variety puts at around 900. Current movies in development include a Morbius the Living Vampire movie starring Jared Leto, as well as movies based off the characters Jackpot, Black Cat, Kraven the Hunter, Nightwatch, Silk, and Silver Sable, and those are just the ones we know about. So, will these movies actually come to fruition? Probably not all of them. But the strong performance of Venom would seem to put the studio in a good position for the future. Spider-Man or no Spider-Man?